Hi, this is Tony. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to attempt to fix the neck of this peacock. I'm not super pleased with it. Let me just show you the whole picture real quick. You can see the whole picture now. This is from Hanna Karlzon's Daydreams. And what I had originally planned with the neck of the peacock was to match more of these kind of neutral feathers here. And I don't know what happened. I think I tried shading. You can see up close that I did start, where's my finger? That I did start with some of that pink peachy color. And then I went in and I think the problem was when I went in and shaded, I shaded with lavender or something too purple, which I think I was trying to avoid it looking like the background, like these feathers kind of blend into the background, so I wanted to try blending it with a bit more purple to help them pop, but I got carried away and went darker and darker, and now it just looks like the peacock is purple, and that's not really what I was going for. I wanted the purple here to pop and the purple in the feathers to pop, and now I just think it's too much. I don't like the composition as it's come out. So I'm going to attempt, let me put my camera back, to erase the purple. And I know it's not all going to come off because it's so dark. But I just don't like the way that it is. So I thought I'd document this process because it could very well turn into a disaster. And that would be fun for everyone to watch. So I'm just going to take some of that color away. It is spread fairly thick on there, but I haven't pushed to the point of burnishing, so I think there is still some tooth left on the paper. Some, anyway. There are a lot of layers going on there. I'll just go ahead. I don't care if I go over the blue. I'm not sold on the blue yet either. Okay. The electric eraser is definitely the one that's going to take off the color the best, but it's small, and so I'm going to go in with this guy. Now I know this isn't going to get everything off, but actually that is coming off a little better than I thought that it might. So that's encouraging. I'll get some of these little ones down here with the electric eraser. I don't want to catch anything off that there. I'll go around the edges with the electric eraser too. I don't want to get my background. Okay. I'm actually really pleased with even just that. I'm going to go in with the electric one. I think it's two. So here's what the whole thing looks like now, and you can see there is still like a shadow of a purple there, but it's actually a lot lighter than I thought it was going to be, and so I think I might be able to go in and do this and it'll just have a bit of a purple undertone. But I'm going to try it and we'll see what happens. So the colors I used here, I have to remember because I don't write anything down. I used, I don't know what I used. I think I used light peach or maybe deco peach. So light peach. And I used the yellow chartreuse just for a bit of the top light reflection. I won't use that hardly at all. What else is there? Bronze. I know I shaded it with the bronze. Ah! There they go. And cream. I know I used cream as the light color. I think I probably also used the Deco Peach. See, the problem is I'm just not sure how to shade these. These ones down here, I shaded all the feathers individually, and I want this to look like a cohesive whole because these are just, whoops, I keep bumping, I'm sorry. I want this to look like a cohesive whole because they're just small, and I don't want to have to shade each one. So I think I'm just gonna go in and lay down. Okay, something happened to my phone. I'm not sure where we left off, but I've been going in with the light peach color. Obviously, this isn't covering up that shadow of purple. And right now what I'm doing is I'm just kind of putting a base color down, I suppose. I'm avoiding the edges because I want those to be lit as if the light is coming a bit from behind. I'm going to be doing that effect on the rest of this as well. You can see the top here I've done much lighter than down here. And I'll eventually go in with a gel pen or a Posca to do the outline there to make it look like it's backlit. So I'm avoiding the edges for that reason. Okay, the edges and other places I've done with cream, so I'm going to go ahead and put the cream there on the edges. Now I'm going to go in with the Deco Peach, pull in a bit more of that pink color. I find that these little tiny details, the little feathers, can be really forgiving when I'm trying to color this in as a large space. If these little feathers weren't here and I was trying to fill in this large space, I would be much more meticulous about it because I would want it to look smooth and blended. But the little feathers cover that up, and so they allow me to work a little quicker. They just disguise the unevenness a bit. I see a lot of time in coloring groups people who are intimidated by small details in coloring books. And honestly, I think that if you're a beginning colorist, I would seek out books with a lot of detail because you don't have to color in each detail. You can color in, like I'm doing here, as kind of a whole shape, but the detail there hides any unevenness. I also think, in general, it's easier to color smaller areas than it is to cover big ones, just because the big ones can be so uneven and difficult to blend. And I think smaller things are easier to shade than larger things. I just think that small details for beginning colorists are the way to go, but they look so intimidating that people get scared of trying them, and I honestly think that they might be better for someone who wants to learn how to color well. And I've thought about making a video about that, about what kinds of books would be good for beginners and why maybe a certain book you hadn't thought would be a good beginner book would be. I didn't explain that very well because I'm thinking 100 things and also I'm sick and I don't know. Never mind. Another topic. Okay, so now with the bronze, this is my shading color. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to shade these feathers. So these ones are larger, so what I had tried before was to shade these ones individually and these ones not, and that just didn't look good. So I'm trying to think how I want to do this exactly. Last time I started at the bottom. This time I'm gonna start at the top. And I think I will shade each of these individually-ish. So let's see, if my light is coming from behind but also top down, then these will be like, I'm gonna start here because that's just easy for me to think of where these shadows will be. This place in the middle here will be more difficult. Around the edges it will be easier to shade. I think in the middle is where it's the most difficult to shade. I'm imagining that light coming from the top, and so I'm shading, as I've mentioned in previous tutorial videos, that I'm thinking kind of that bottom left. The problem with wanting to shade each one is it's hard to see which ones I've already done. So I've shaded kind of each one in this little area, but I'm also going to treat it as a larger shape. And I'm just going to kind of go like this. And that adds a shadow above this larger shape here. And again, I'm hugging the left and the bottom there. Now here, when the light's hitting, some of these feathers are going to cast a shadow on the feather to the left of them. So here, it's almost like I'm creating a U, where I am on the left, the bottom, and then a little bit on the right side because of that cast shadow from the feathers next to it. It's like I'm shading underneath that feather, I guess. Here I'm going to go with that larger shape idea again. I think I am going to shade all these individually and then just kind of along the middle because I want it to look round. So the middle is going to be the darkest and the outside is going to be the lightest because of that backlight. And I think I'm just going to be a bit more heavy-handed with my shading in the middle than I am toward the edges. And these outside ones here, these feathers right along the edge, they won't even, I'm not even shading those ones. They won't get any shadow. At least for now. And then we'll see what that looks like and I can adjust. But it is better to be too light at first than too dark at first. In the end, you do want a decent amount of contrast. But as you're working, it's better to work, you've heard it before, in light layers. Because it's much easier to fix light layers as opposed to all the erasing I did earlier. This is just going to be a bit darker in there like that. Yep, and in here too. And as I'm doing this, you can see I am kind of sticking to the idea of that bottom left. But I'm not being too picky about it. I'm just kind of coloring in the general vicinity of the bottom left. Now, as I get more down here, thinking about shading, I'm going to start shading this side of the feathers because the backlight is coming from this direction, sort of. It's coming around the neck and shining a bit. It's getting bent around by the neck and coming out this way and coming out straight at us and a bit this way. It's kind of like the light is going like this. And so the feather over here is getting hit by the light here, so the shadow's going to be off to the left. The same thing on this side. the light is coming toward us like this around that neck. So it's getting bent this way. The feathers on this side of that light, they'll have their shadows on this side of the feather. And so on this side of the neck, I'm going to be shading kind of the left side of the feather, and on this side will be the right side of the feather because of that backlighting. And as I get more toward the middle, it'll just be kind of more middle-ish. I don't know a better way to describe that for you. But I'll let you, we'll go ahead and run the camera while I do this for a bit. I'm being a bit more careful around the edges than I am here in the middle. The middle is just shading underneath those top feathers, really. And the feathers here are getting a bit bigger. So I said small areas can be easier to shade. If they're too teeny, then they're difficult to shade, but this size here is just fine. These are getting a bit easier to shade than the really tiny ones up here. It's when areas get too big that I don't like. Well, I don't mind it, but it's just more difficult to shade and work with. It just means I have to take a little bit more time on the bigger areas because they require smoother blends. It's funny and interesting to watch different people color, I think, because some people work really quickly and get amazing results, and some people work really slowly. And I'm just definitely one of those slower colorists with lots of layers and lots of things going on. But like Zucchini Kitty, for example, whose channel I absolutely love. I love all of her art. She works so fast, and it's just the mediums she uses, I think. She uses the inks, and I don't know, she just can work really quickly. Do you have a favorite colorist that you enjoy watching? There's lots of them. I like Color with Claire, obviously. Actually, Color with Claire, I used her iridescence tutorial for these feathers and these feathers. This whole book for me is about experimenting, this Daydreams book, and just like silly colors and trying new things, and very like pastel-y, ethereal, I don't know. I had shown you before the other one I've done in here, or another one I have done in here, this one. So just very pastel colors, daydreamy, obviously. So that's kind of the theme I'm going for, and I thought trying these iridescent peacock feather tails would be kind of fun. I didn't want to color just a teal green regular peacock. That's not a daydream, that's real life. I had asked a question and then answered it with one answer, Color with Claire, and then got sidetracked. So other artists I like to watch, Peta Hewitt, Chris Chang, Laura Colors Too, Laura Rafferty, I love her channel. Zucchini Kitty I had mentioned. Those are probably the ones that I watch the most regularly. Who else am I forgetting? I know there's tons of them. There are others that I watch too, Color and Chat with Sammy, but I don't watch those as often. I prefer edited videos over live streams. What do you like in a video? Who do you like watching? Why do you like watching them? Do you prefer edited videos? Do you prefer live streams? Do you prefer videos with music, without music? No, I've run out of edge here. So on these ones, these aren't really the edge because really the picture extends, right? If you were to imagine the liner extending maybe out this way, the edge would be here. This is middle. So I'm not sticking to my left side of the feather here anymore. This is just middle. And we're shading the overlaps. The underneath, the cast shadow here. This is still kind of edge. This is getting a bit less edge here, more middle. I'm being really indiscriminate with where I'm putting these shadows, basically. There is a rhyme and a reason to it, but I'm not being militant. There's too many of them to be too scrutinizing. I think my edges need to be a bit lighter. I can go. That's easy to fix. I'll just go over it with an eraser again. This is why I'm slow. Okay, on these larger ones, I am being a bit more deliberate with my shading. So I'm going left and bottom because primarily there is the backlight, but primarily the light is coming this way, the front lighting. And so I'm going left and bottom. And also shading underneath the feathers that are on top because the light is coming from the top. These top feathers are going to cast a shadow. So you get something like that. Right here, as you can see, I continue this idea of the, the edges being lighter, that backlighting all the way around. So this middle part, I successfully, I don't really know how I did it now. It was months ago. Made this part in here look darker than the outside, which gives it that illusion of roundness. So I'm going to attempt to do the same thing here, where these feathers here should all be much darker. But again, this is still the middle, right? Because the edge comes off. So these should all be much darker than the ones over here. So I'm going to be more heavy-handed here in this area. And I'm not so heavy-handed that I'm burnishing because I do want to be able to add another layer of color if I need to. I'm just being a bit more liberal with how much bronze I'm putting down. Because really, these feathers should be covered in shadow. And as I do this, I'm changing my focus. I'm not stopping coloring, but my eyes are going in and out. Sometimes I'm focusing on, okay, this feather. And other times, as I'm still coloring, I'm not looking at really exactly where I'm coloring. I'm looking at it as a whole. I know this needs to be darker and this needs to be lighter, so I'm watching how it needs to fade. It can't just be these are all dark and now these are light. There's got to be a transition. And so I switch my focus, my gaze, like my literal, what I'm looking at, between the individual feather and the neck as a whole to decide which feathers need to be darker, which ones need a bit more shadow, and which ones don't need as much. So now I like how dark this has been coming out, and I think that kind of the very middle of the neck needs to be, needs to be similar, and this part of the head as well, just to help it look more rounded. Right now it looks a bit flat. I'm going to stay away from the edges as I do it because I've already added my shading to the edges. I don't want them to get any darker. So as I kind of stay in this middle column, these are all going to be darker through here. So just adding a bit more. I'm not being successful here, okay. I should darken it. This This is where I'm going to go a bit bigger. And just kind of block in where I think it needs to be darker. Kind of like I did here, treating it as a larger shape in these areas. I'm just going to do the same thing, because if I try to do it individually, I'm not going to get that effect. And you can see already that looks a bit more round. It's a bit lopsided. Even it up. I just feel like it's losing its pinkish factor though, but that's okay. I like it more than I liked the purple. And actually right here, the light is being kind of blocked by these, I'm sure there's a term for these little head sprouts thingies, but I don't know what it is. So I'm actually, there's no backlight coming right there, so I'm gonna go ahead and darken that up a bit. And actually I'll do that more so with a pink. What? Maybe not. That's okay. I feel like I've lost some of the pink in here, so I'm just going back over it with the Deco Peach. And I need to add some color here because this is all still just kind of white. And then the light peach. By the beak. The feather is going to be coming out of the beak a bit, so I want this to appear just a bit rounded coming out of there. So I'm just darkening up that edge a little. Okay. I'm actually going to take a little bit of this yellow chartreuse because I showed you over here in these feathers, there actually is just a line of yellow chartreuse here. I did that to set it apart from the background because there is no chartreuse color in the background. Also because the chartreuse is the color I used for the iridescence in here. And I did actually go in and shade this with some chartreuse as well. So just for continuity and cohesiveness, I'm going to throw some of that in here in places. I think it might be a bit too dark though. So, just really lightly. I know I just went in with the cream, but I'm just going to take a bit of that out. Okay, and I'll put some chartreuse in just on the, just in some places. I don't want it overpowering. I might be overpowering it. I am just going to darken up so areas that need to be the darkest. I'm going really lightly because I don't know how dark this is going to go down. When I go back and forth like this, I'm not going straight up and down. I'm going in ovals. See that? That makes a difference in getting a smooth lay down and blending. Just doing some of the darkest spots. Okay, I'm going to use black grape. I know this color lays down really opaque, so I'm going to go really lightly, but these feathers are shaded so much with so much more contrast than these ones here, and so I need to add more contrast, and I think using a purple will help blend it up into here. So here we go. Start with the bottom one actually. Oh yeah, I think that's gonna work. It's too dark, but that's okay. And then it's not just a stark change from the purple to the brown. And then I'm going really lightly on these ones up here because I want them to have a hint of the purple to fade into this. I'm just having a really hard time with this part of the peacock. I was kind of terrified of doing this part, so I wasn't sure how to approach it. Clearly, I still have no idea. But I think that tackling something that you don't really know how to do is going to help you in the long run, because then when you do things that you're a bit more comfortable with, they'll feel even easier. Let's see if these have too much contrast here. Bronze. See, my fear before is that I shaded with too much purple and then the whole thing turned purple, so I'm trying to be really careful. Don't want to take the purple up too high. There we go. Okay, so here it is pretty much done. It's not quite as pink or peach as I had imagined, but that's okay. Totally okay, because the peach is there. It's just shaded. I did add a bit more brown around here and here, and then I took out the blue and green, the chartreuse that was here. I added that when this was purple, but I don't like it now that this is more of a gold color. It's gonna have to stay some kind of blue though, because that did not come up as easily as the purple, which is surprising to me. But yeah, there it is. Thanks for watching.